Now we've got it set up with £40 of additional plates added on these upper arms, and the weight we had below here originally. We get a 14.4 and a 4.4 on each end of the bottom arm, and then in this case an additional 5 pounds added up here, and then 40 pounds on these upper arms. That's a lot of weight, over 80 pounds of weight. Again, that motor's not really made to get it going. Especially as we get to heavier weights, you need a starter motor. So let's get going here. 1,000, 2, 1,000. Now, the battery is, we're only putting out 6.4, 6.5 volts. We drop 6.1. So we're in the sixes, and it's at full blast. I can't turn up the control anymore because we're just wearing down the battery slowly. But we're still right now at, there was 1 watt, 0.9, 0.8, 0.7, 1.1, 0.7, 0.9. But we're at about a solid 0.15 amps at about 6 something volts, and because it's doing a little work. I don't have it balanced perfectly. I'm not killing this to make it as low as possible, because 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000. So this is at 30 RPM. With this weight at 30 RPM, even if we allow for a little bit of the weights in the, not quite 2 feet, all that, actually this is pushing over 2,200 watts, but we'll just say, 2,000 watts. So that's, as you're watching right now, I'm going to get the camera here in a second, but we're at about a watt right now. Again, we're driving. Gravity is pulling this weight down. What we're actually doing is the torque shaft, you see, is slightly angled. So the actual principle is we're rotating the plane. The weight is in essence always falling. The plane that it's falling towards, that it's attached to, moves, so it has to fall to the next location. So the weights are infinitely falling. They're using gravity. That's why in a lot of parts where people say you can't do this, you can't have it. Again, this is scientifically documentable at over 2,000 watts of shaft torque. You don't think that shaft, I just hit the weight, you don't think that shaft isn't grinding. We have 80 pounds rotating. It's a 4-foot diameter, 2-foot radius, and it's grinding on that wheel right now. Imagine if we had, corn or something. Anything below that would be grinding with the same amount of force. Now, some people would say, and this is of course very valid, but this applies to everything. If you were to clamp on a 2,000 watt load right now, this would effectively stop. So no, you don't actually, if you hooked a generator up, you wouldn't be generating 2,000 watts of power. By the same token, again, a windmill. If you took a windmill that had a certain rated load and you just clamped on that and dragged that much power out, it would of course just stop right in the air. So those aspects, I assume in my head a 10-to-1, perhaps it might be as good as a 4-to-1 ratio. I don't know. I haven't been in that industry and I'm not an engineer. So we'll get that stuff figured out. But the point being, we're using 1 watt. Documented. We know this drive can never put out more than 4.2 watts. We know that we're generating at least 1,000, really it's at least 2,000, but if we only used 1 and we created 2, it would be a phenomenal event. This is 1 creating several thousand. I'm only limited to the several thousand because I don't have any more weight plates, to be honest. As you can imagine, with this balanced arrangement, we could continue to load these arms up with as many weights as I could put on them. And then mathematically, again, as you kind of witnessed as we went from, if you remember long ago, 4.4 pounds on 1 arm, which was 117 watts. This is more than 4.4 pounds. Yet, our power is still about 1 watt, 0.7, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, you get the idea. I think it clarifies how little we're using when it's easier for me to sometimes say, let's just take the point out. That kind of, that's all you need to say, because if we're below 1.0 watts, 1.0 watts by itself could never rotate 80 pounds through a 4-foot diameter circle. There's no technique or methodology ever conceived to do that. Especially, as you can see, with the only force being gravity. There's no external drive of any kind. Well, there is. Management. So, again, tonight when you're thinking, he put on a lot of weight, now it's going to slow down. Well, there's 2 factors to that. First of all, you're thinking spot on, because I'm not going to take this thing grinding tonight, so I'm going to turn it down. But other than that, let's say you said, no, I'm leaving it on there. It is going to stop eventually. All gravity systems stop. Everyone knows that. Yeah, because this 9 volt is going to get tired of running this. I guess I can leave it till it runs out of juice, but folks, technically, at less than a watt of draw at 6 volts, this thing's probably going to go a long time. I don't need to impress you, because I set the speed. If I don't like this, we'll just snap this off and grab a 12 volt and put it on here, and then I can juice her up to 60 RPM, and we can have a party till that battery runs out at the appropriate, again, wattage, the new watts being generated in that shaft. So as I've been yakking, you've been watching less than 1 watt of proven electrical energy, stirring, managing, spinning, whatever word you like. This torque shaft is rotating over 80 pounds of weight at a 2-foot distance from the shaft. Again, now envision a generator, planetary gear, a multiplier. This is a slow speed, so most generators are going to need a planetary gear in the middle, and then a generator, and then they will put that out. You will find in many types of industry that's not going to be the way you're going to go, because there's going to be a new direction some people will think about of why are you converting torque rotational power, which is incredible stuff in the world of force, into electricity, which is an inherently inefficient process. We don't really know much about generators, unfortunately. Then we take that generated electricity, we have to store it or use it immediately, If we then use it immediately, it's being converted in almost all cases into a rotary force or a linear force, which even there your linear is usually based on rotary. So it's kind of, why did we switch it to electricity to switch it back to rotary torque when this makes gobs of rotary torque? That's another discussion. So anyway, I just had that discussion so that you all could sit here while we let this spin for a long time, because I realized to newcomers, this is my apartment and this has been here for several years, so I get really sick and tired of hearing it yakking all the time. So I'll give you guys a few more minutes here. I think one thing too, as that goes, that's very important, is that people, there's a fear factor of what is a gravity-based system going to do to solar power and hydro and a lot of, well, alternative energies. You have to realize the scalability of this. I think some of you have already understood that as I've been talking, but there's no reason that I can't rotate a mass as large as an aircraft carrier. I can take a mass as big as a professional sports stadium and rotate it. To be blunt, this form of device is going to power everything that you know in the future. I know that's funny to some of you looking behind me. It's not funny to scientists. They understand what I'm saying. This can easily power an entire city. It can easily power a house. It can easily power other devices, which we'll talk about. It's scalable, is the scientific. So it doesn't really have limits. Its limits are more man's limits and our abilities to implement it, not its ability to do what it does. And for those of you still watching, this, by the way, is not, again, as I said, a gravity engine. It's a force engine. It's not an engine at all, but it's a force redirector. And in this case, we're redirecting the force of gravity into rotational shaft torque. There are no laws of thermodynamics that are violated. This will not, in this implementation, it will not work in outer space. It is not perpetual motion in that classic sense of the word. It does not. It requires a force, in this case the force of gravity. If gravity was not pulling down on these weights, they would not be spinning. So I realize that's a very difficult thing for people to accept, because everyone has been told you cannot make power from thin air. You can't make power from gravity. It's probably somebody calling to tell me you can't make power from gravity. And you can't rotate 80 pounds 2 feet from a shaft at 30 RPM with less than 2,000 watts. That's a fact. And I admit that fact and accept that fact. That is why that shaft below this has what I refer to, I don't know if it's scientifically correct, I don't care. It's 2,000 plus shaft watts of power. We can divide that to torque, just at this speed we would divide by pi. If we're still at 31, 1,000, 2, 1,000, yes, we would divide by pi. But as the case may be, this is in excess of 2,000 watts of shaft torque, shaft watts, sorry. And that is not scientifically refutable. It is also not refutable. You can attempt it if you want to refute that. It's a difficult refutement. I mean, a 9-volt battery, unless you think I took this apart, and I'll go grab other ones, I don't care. And that I, have modified a Doc Watson. It's an enormous amount of effort for a hoax, and I don't do hoaxes, so. Hey, you can always push stop on the video. Just get out of here. That's another option for you. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward, folks. I could rotate, just make up a word, 1 billion metric tons. You could even spell tons with the 2 N's and the E like in English. Just make it fancy. Doesn't matter. That's what you have to start to grip. You can argue about gravity engines all you want. You can discuss them. You can theorize. Everyone tells me that science says you can't make power from gravity. I've never actually found anywhere that science says that. I've found a lot of places in my life that people have concluded what certain formulas and concepts come out to. Well, I've lived my whole life with what people think. And my idol, Leonardo da Vinci, he said you couldn't do it. And I agree for the technology of his time. Leonardo did not, and of course, he would have had the party of his life, and I would have loved to have it with him, if he knew and had touched and seen and been around electric motors. It would have changed everything. So, although Leonardo unknowingly polluted the world of science, and he's my greatest idol, that he convinced people and said you can't do a gravity-powered engine, and he had great designs, classic designs we've all seen. It's the first stumbling block everyone has with gravity. They believe a gravity-powered system must run by itself with no assistance. I said long ago, 20 plus years ago, why is that? So what if I spend a watt of power? I have 2,000 shaft watts. You know what? Go ahead and burn 10 up top if you need to, Junior. As long as I still get my 2,000 in here. And that's the John device. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. I bet you'll have some thinking to do. Hey, I'll give you an advanced tip. It makes all those things on TV about getting your degree and being a windmill technician, and we're going to spend billions drilling for oil here and there. It's quite a hoot when you know about this right here. And you can see, I think, from the complexity. Wow, that'd be tough to implement something that difficult, Dave. Yeah. As I said, there won't be any other form of power generation on the planet Earth in 10 years. You might still have nuclear and fusion And that'll be neat, that'll be fun stuff. People can have all kinds of fun with those toys. But it'll be for research, not for any reason to make power from it. I mean, that's fine if somebody wants to spend, you know, umpteen $1 trillion to make some watts, when all I need to do is go dig up half of a mountain in Mass and hook it on a big generator, and I can do the same thing. Oh, I can do mine tomorrow, by the way. They are going to need X number of years and X number of trillions. My goodness, if I just had 1 trillion that they spend, I could put one of these dudes and power every home in America for eternity. Because, oh yeah, folks, as gravity power, I think we know. When does it run out of power? The day that gravity stops. It's all over. But I think it's all over that anyway, when you view it that way. So. Welcome to my world. Because your world is never going to be the same. Power? We don't need no stinking power. We got all the power we want. Just 1 watt. And look, if we take out that, my drive motor's not very good. I'm not a motion control guy. But watch, I'm using a few more watts now with my hand. Probably up to 10, maybe 12. Yeah, I'm kissing like 12 watts. I know watts real well now. No, not that high. There we go. About 6, 7 watts, maybe. No, I'm only peaking. We're still down under about 4. We're probably averaging in the 2s or 1s even now as I'm driving the car. Okay, so 1,000. Trying to spin her up to 60 RPM. Okay, so we're almost at 60 RPM. And I'm kissing sometimes, I think, 50.